Hello, and welcome to EY Growth Bites, a conversation series with today's top data executives to discuss how they're revolutionizing operations within their organizations by harnessing the complete spectrum of data and AI. I'm Traci Gusher. I lead the Americas region for AI and data for Ernst & Young, where I have the pleasure of working with some of today's most innovative data executives and technologists from around the world to leverage innovation and data to unleash the power within their organizations. Today, I'm honored to have Kirby Forlin, Senior Vice President of Data Commercialization and Advanced Analytics at McKesson. How is McKesson Compile staying ahead of how data and AI can fuel what it is doing for McKesson and its clients?
Yeah, well, so when we acquired Compile, now McKesson Compile, they already had on the market some great products that were very helpful for biopharma companies. And the big claim to fame is just two things, really. They have analytics ready data, and they have great customer service. They're customer forward and making sure that they're responsive to the customer needs. When we take a look at the products that they do have, what we realized was McKesson was sitting on a ton of data that might help both optimize their existing products or potentially let us create brand new products in the marketplace with proprietary data that exists already at McKesson. In order to do that, we spend a lot of time with our customers, talking to them, collaborating with them, understanding, what are they trying to solve for? What data might they need, and what data might exist at McKesson that would help solve that particular AI use case and or just issue that they're trying to solve within the healthcare space. And then, of course, that customer centricity, really understanding what are their needs and what are their pain points and what are they solving for, and then being responsive to that is really what McKesson Compile is all about.
And Kirby, I can't help but think about just the massive amounts of places and use cases that this data and McKesson Compile can be addressing. And it's got to be a daunting task figuring out where do we point it, right? So I'm just curious, how do you prioritize the use cases that McKesson Compile will focus on?
Well, it's interesting. We spend a lot of time with our customers, and they have a lot of biopharma services companies have a lot of ideas about what they want to do and new and novel ideas of how they want to leverage AI. So a lot of what we're focused on is understanding those needs. We are a data provider. And so we'll take a look at, hey, what are they trying to solve for? What are the assets that exist at McKesson that could help solve for those particular use cases? And that really helps us prioritize what data are we going to bring into our ecosystem that we think is going to fuel those positive outcomes for patients across the United States, or health outcomes for all. And after that, we really need to say, okay, so how feasible is it for us to get this data, to organize this data? How complete and sufficient is that data? But those are the discussions that are really helping us prompt how do we make sure that we're focused on the right things that are going to add the most value for both our biopharma customers, but of course, also the patients at large.
And I can't help but think about the evolving regulatory landscape that every organization in every sector has been dealing with. But as we look on the horizon, there's so many different indicators of AI being regulated. You've got, the European Act that is already in place. We last year had an executive order around AI that was related to the way that federal agencies need to be thinking about governing AI. But then more broadly than that, healthcare and life sciences has always had a strong regulatory component in its data, with HIPAA and the fact that you have sensitive PHI data. I mean, it's kind of a swirl of potential regulation and compliance. So when you're thinking about what you have with McKesson Compile and where you're going with McKesson Compile, how do you balance the regulation and pending, potential regulation with innovation?
Yeah. It's a great question. And, at McKesson Compile, we take, privacy extremely seriously. In fact, the biggest way that we address that is we exclusively work with de-identified data, and that safeguards the patient's privacy. We don't identify patients individually within our data sets. That allows biopharma services companies to really leverage that data, that de-identified sort of not patient identified data, to be able to really understand and explore what they're trying to solve for, while meeting those HIPAA, GDRP, and CCPA, and all the other regulations that exist across globally and the United States. But I think it's also just really important to stay informed, and be proactive. Understand, like, that legislation, those rules are constantly changing. You can't rest on your laurels. You need to really understand and have a team behind you really thinking about what is changing in that space. I think it's really important that you take data governance very seriously, and you have a robust data governance processes in place that make sure that you are staying abreast to the new legislation, but then also putting it into practice. And then, of course, as always, I think that we see this, particularly in light of the latest issue with the technology outage that was recent. I think it was last week, or was it early this week? But implementing robust security measures, even though that wasn't a security breach, but breaches are happening all the time, and you really need to make sure that you have your security in place. It's up to date. You're constantly staying vigilant, and those are the things that I think are really important as we really address the issues with privacy and security of patient data.
Kirby, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation today. We really appreciate your time, and I know our listeners will really appreciate the insights that you've shared with us today. It's so important that we're talking with executives like yourself that are on the ground and driving value for the organizations and the customers that they serve. So we couldn't be more grateful for you spending time with us today. For our listeners, thank you so much for joining us for EY Growth Bites. Be sure to check back soon for more conversations with other data executives like Kirby. Thank you so much.
Thank you.